What up? What up? What's going on, everybody? Welcome everybody to episode 85 of Shut Up, Let's Talk, folks. Hanging out with DreamShore in the house today. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on, my man. How's life, man? Thank you for being here, dude.
Can't complain. I mean, every day is a new day of life to begin something new.
Every day is a new day. Oh man, I remember a good POD song starting with those lyrics. Man.
You know what Snoop Dogg says? If you're breathing, you're achieving.
Oh, did Snoop actually say that?
Yeah, he does. Well,
wow.
in a song.
Oh, that's funny. I've never heard that quote in my life. But thank you. That's what's up. I'm gonna have to start living by that rule. I like it. I took it off. Yes, I had in the beginning of the first 30 seconds of the episode or so, I did have a big poster saying DreamShore, which right in the middle of the screen, which is good. That was awesome. Anyway, man, thank you so much for being here, dude. It's funny, man. We were saying a little bit right before the show that, like, yeah, we've never met, but we know a lot of people. We have a lot of friends in common.
Right. And you're friends with friends that I've either hung out with or been with in the past.
Now, what song was Tommy on in your recording? What song was that?
He was on the song "Runaway." It was actually my current single that I have.
Really?
As of now, yeah.
Where? It's funny because I didn't even hear a sax in that song. I must be tripping.
Well, no. He just did a guitar solo. He was. It was a while back when I was working on this song, because I've had this song for years, and he came through. Him and Jonathan, actually, they were at my house, and he was just. I asked him if he can help me come up with a guitar solo, and he came through and did it for me.
Okay, wait. We need to back up for a second here, because this solo that I'm hearing on Runaway, because I like that song. I've been listening to it for the last couple of days. That solo is Tommy.
Yeah.
Gariga.
That was all him.
My homie, Tom. I'm speechless right now. I literally can't believe that, because I love that solo, and I can't believe. You know what, Tommy? Why don't you play like that when you come hang out over here? Goddamn.
He should.
Dude, I feel like, you know what? I feel like maybe you brought something out of him that day, because, man, knowing Tommy, and for anybody who's watching at home tonight, thank you everybody for hanging out. Tommy's a good friend of mine who does play guitar, but it's funny because when I see him, you know, maybe we're just in conversation. He doesn't really pull out those skills that I heard, because, and I'm not saying he's a bad guitar player at all, but I'm saying he's a great one, and he's even better than I thought. So yeah, that's a great song and a great performance, which we'll actually get to hear in a little bit. Mm-hmm. And anyway, man, so DreamShore, man, the first thing, I know everybody likes to talk about names, or as soon as we get into, like, you know, podcasts or interviews or whatever, you know, where does the name come from? As corny as it is, I got to do it, because honestly, the first thing that captivates me about your music is your name, because you hear it and then you're like, it automatically puts you into place.
Yeah. And
that's cool, you know, because, and I'm not saying this is why my music fails or anything stupid like that, but, you know, me, when I put myself out to, you know, my music, it's just my name, Alizar, right?
Right.
So people probably hear it and they're like, oh, I don't know, what is that? And then, but when they hear DreamShore, it brings so much imagery to the mind. How did that name come up, my friend? Because that's a cool name.
Well, during 2014, I was with a couple of bands, and during that time frame, I was experimenting with music, specifically electronic. This was before I even had an idea of what I wanted to come up with as far as electronic music is concerned. And one day, I was at the beach. I had some time. I just needed some time to relax and be alone, and just relax, you know, calm down. And I had a lot of thoughts in my head of what the direction I wanted for this project, and then, you know, the name for it. And during that moment, I kept thinking to myself something that had to be dreamy, let's say, revolving around, you know, the ocean, because the ocean's is like home to me.
Yeah,
and I go there every now and then, you know, at least once a week if I can.
Nice.
But really, it was a lot of just thinking, a long-term process, and I just randomly came up with the name DreamShore.
So is DreamShore a place that you were at when you were making music? Like when you know, because I feel like when we're making music, we're never just in a room with instruments, right?
Yeah.
We're always in a car driving fast, right? Or we're in a valley looking over something, or we're in a place doing something else in our minds. So is DreamShore a place, you know, is that where you're making the music? Is that like, because, you know, it's funny, when I hear the word DreamShore, the first thing I think of is the first thing I hear is like the shh of the ocean, you know?
Yeah.
Like I hear that static, that beautiful static sound.
That's
the white noise of the water.
Yep, that's the one, the ambient noise.
I love that, man. And it's, like I said, it puts a lot of pictures into the mind, man. So I like that a lot. It's a cool name.
Thanks.
Where are you typically, like I said, where are you typically when you make music? where do you put yourself in your mind? I know it all depends on the song, but you know.
Well, you mean like songwriting and writing the song, or what do you mean?
Well, I mean like a visual, you know, like when you close your eyes and you imagine yourself in a place. You know, like
Yeah.
I know, like I said, I know it's different in every song, but normally, like for me, like I like to pretend I'm in space when I write music. I just love that. I like pretend I'm in a space station, you know?
Yeah.
I like pretend I have a big glass window like you see in those sci-fi movies, and I get to just look out at all these stars, and I get to see planets, and there's one nearby, one not, you know?
Yeah.
And then I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I've been, but...
I mean, for me, it's just like I'm always either working on my home or I'm doing something else. But when it comes to writing the songs, I'm at home. I tend to experiment a lot with different synthesizers and specifically plugins. And as far as my thought process when it comes to making songs, I usually am taking the time to go out, you know, at a brisk walk or like at a nearby park or preferably the ocean. I have family members that live right by Surfside next to the Ball Harbor shop, so I tend to go there every now and then to visit and hang out with family and take a long walk around the entire area because it gives me a lot to think about, and it doesn't. I don't feel stressed. I feel calm. You know.
That's awesome, man. So do you find? So I mean, from what you're telling me, you find a lot of peace in like nature, you know?
Yeah, I'm not the kind of guy that I don't really go out a lot. I don't really go to parties or stuff like that. For me, it's just all about. I mean, I like living my life where, although I always will catch up with family and friends, but I always have this preference of being alone and just having the time for myself and doing things that I enjoy the most.
I love it.
You know, such as writing music and having alone time.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but you know what's funny though? That when don't a lot of people ask you like, how'd you find the time for that? Like, how'd you do that?
It's simple. Make it.
You make it, right? And that's the funny thing, right? A lot of people ask you like, oh, like, you know, how'd you make that song? You know, how'd you I don't know how you find the time for that. And yeah, it always comes back to making it because I think about the same thing. Is that, you know, like, don't get me wrong, I would go to a few parties here and there, but typically I would like to be at home practicing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, how are you going to get any better if you don't? Like,
Exactly.
maybe some people got it like that, but I don't. I never had, you know. I had to work for it, man. And you have to experiment. You have to make a bunch of terrible songs to make a great one.
You really do.
You know, and how did you start out making music, man? What were some of the first, you know, pieces of gear that you got? Like, what were you making music on before you had, you know, like, did you get a keyboard first and decide, all right, I'm going to try to record this and use your phone to record? Like,
Well, actually, during middle school, I started playing the bass.
Oh, sweet.
And I had an uncle of mine who was also a musician during that time frame, and you know, he bought me a bass and an amp, and I got really into the whole writing music. But I was exploring because I wasn't really sure exactly what I wanted to do. So I just took one day at a time and experiment, figure out what I want. And it wasn't until 18 is when I got interested in recording music. That's when I first encountered Audacity. It's just one of those very, very basic digital audio workstation software.
That's a stepping stone program.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
But you know,
I love it.
I mean, yeah.
But for what it is?
For what it is, exactly.
For what it gives people?
Yes, it's a free
man.
software. You know, available to anybody, convenient, straight to the point. And I had that for a couple of years. I was with a couple of bands that didn't really have anything, and I said to myself, you know what? Let me figure out a way to record this and see what I can make out of it. And I literally, I kid you not, I had a Rock Band mic.
Oh, yes.
And I used that mic to record everything. I was just like, all right, figuring out what, you know, if I place it over here, what does it sound like? If I place it over there, what does it sound like? With drums, guitar, or just mic placement on amplifiers specifically.
And that's a big key
Yeah.
for a lot of people if you don't know. Like, moving a microphone, you can't just put it in the area.
No.
You know?
But
Tell me about miking in the beginning. What did you? Because I know, you know, the first thing that I ever tried to mic was a computer mic, the ones that plug into the pink port in your computer. You know,
Right,
a friend of mine gave me that to record on. I had a first act acoustic guitar from Walmart, and I would just hold up, and I would hold this microphone. It was supposed to be the ones you clip onto your shirt. Mm-hmm. So I would clip it over my shirt. I didn't even have a metronome. I would tap my foot, have this mic hanging over me, and record on this acoustic guitar to try to... It was just the most ridiculous stuff that we tried to do to make music back then, right?
But you make it happen. That's the best part about it.
And the reward when it's there?
Yeah.
Oh, man. So then... so yeah, man. So you said you were trying to find your sound, and then eventually you got Audacity. You decided to try to record yourself. And what was the next, like...
I had I got as a gift from my mother. I got one of these Casio keyboards, and from there, that's when I said to myself, all right, I'm gonna make the most out of this microphone by recording pretty much any sound that I can think of with the keyboard. I kid you not, I was actually using the drums, the kicks, the hi-hats, the pads, the bass line, everything through the keyboard. It sounded like crap. Absolutely, it was terrible. But the accomplishment was I made it happen, because although it was slightly off tempos in some parts of a specific song, I finished it. Yes. Well, I felt like I finished it. You know, it just felt like, you know, listening to a cassette tape that had a lot of the tape had a lot of, I guess you could say the tape was very old,
like warped
and stuff. So you're listening to like an old cassette player and just like, sounds like crap, but
it's vintage.
But it's vintage, exactly.
That's awesome, though, man. But that's what I'm saying, man. It's all about putting you in a place. I remember I tried something like that once. I had a song, I think I called it "The Magician." All right, that was the name of the song, and I remember the concept for the song. I think I was like 15 at the time. The concept of the song was that somebody would find a radio in the desert, and the radio was playing for some reason.
Yeah.
You know, and then you would get sucked into this radio, and it would take you to this place. You know, and there was like it was a genie, but out of a radio rather than a lamp. You know.
Yeah.
It's like a music genie. You know, and I made this ridiculous song, and I know I have it somewhere around here. But it was all about that. It was all about putting people in a place, giving people a feeling.
Yeah.
I was always more concerned about giving people a feeling rather than technique or, you know, perfect music. I don't know. To me, I just wanted to get my ideas out, man. You know, like who inspired you? Who are musicians that inspire you to pick up your own instrument? You know what I mean? Like people that you listen to and you thought, you know what, I'm trying to express myself like the way that person's doing.
There are many bands that I've always enjoyed. I mean, from alternative rock, progressive metal. I love.
So you started there.
Yeah, I actually was a big fan. I still am. Just I've grown to appreciate a lot of other music genres.
I'm with you on that.
But metal, rock, progressive rock, like Dream Theater, for example. I mean, a buddy of mine, him and I we're big fans of that particular band. My uncle, who bought me my bass guitar, was the one that I got inspired by it, because he bought one of their albums, and I was just really captivated by the structure of the music itself. It was very mesmerizing, you know?
It is. What album?
It was Falling into Infinity. But my favorite by far would have to be Images and Words. I mean, that was their first album, their debut.
I gotta remember the album I really know from Dream Theater is Scenes from a Memory.
Yes.
And that thing was beautiful. And it was funny, my stepbrother had that CD. He had a big stack of CDs and cassettes, and he just let me rummage through them. And he was a metal drummer himself. And this is when I was like 13, 14. So I'm looking through all this stuff, and then I came across one of the cover of Scenes from a Memory, and I threw it in, and I was like, this is like Broadway but metal. And this is like a show that's going on,
yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's a concept album, and if you listen, it's the album we're talking about, guys. It's kind of like a play that's happening, and all their albums are different. I heard A Change of Seasons, and it was amazing. Point is, they're all masters of their instruments. They're all.
There's not many bands like them, especially not today.
I saw Petrucci live. John Petrucci live. Yeah, he was amazing, man.
Yeah, he's a god. He's a god, you could say.
Yeah. So I mean, you were trying to be John Myung in the beginning of the.
At first, I had that. That's
cool, though.
Motivation to be like a bass player like him.
That's a martial art.
We'll get to the martial arts later, but yeah, the bass guitar was one of those instruments that I really loved. It's a foundation, you know, it's the foundation of the band itself. But overall, the way the style it was played, it was like what it was considered as a lead bass guitar, you know, something that led off the song itself. During, you know, the 80s, you could say, I guess, even though I wasn't born during that time frame, but you know, you get what I'm saying.
Yes. I was gonna, you know, it's funny. I was gonna bring that up a little later, but through conversation, we've landed ourselves. You know, it's funny because like I said, you're not from the '80s, right? Which doesn't discredit anybody. To me, I was thinking about this earlier today at work. Okay, and I thought it was amazing because even though, and I was born in 1990, so I'm not either. Even though we're not from the '80s, right? To be able to get a certain sound, as a musician, you kind of pick and choose the best of what that genre offers. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you listen to those 10 years worth of music, you know, 80 to 90, and 89, whatever. You listen to those years worth of music, and you kind of, like I said, you pick, you know, the reverb on the snare,
yeah,
the certain drum patterns, like the the certain sound of the synth. Like I said, you pick the best of what it has to offer. So in a way, the music comes out great because it has all those top-notch elements, and then you get to add on top of it with what you're inspired by and what drives you to be your own musician and have your own voice.
Exactly.
Through a certain microphone.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool, and I love that. And I was thinking about that earlier, and I thought, because I was figuring out, I was like, beyond you just working at your music and being good at it, what makes this so great? Because it was great and good music. And really quick, guys, we should go ahead and play one of the songs, because I know we've been talking for quite a bit, and I know I love to play the music, so you guys have an idea of what we're talking about. First song, do you want to pick the first song? Actually, I can pick the next one if you want. What's one you would like to play? It's on your Spotify.
Sure. Let's go ahead and play Ocean Overdrive.
That's exactly one of the ones I was going to pick. Very good choice. Okay. So, folks, we're going to go ahead and play Ocean Overdrive by DreamShore in the house, and we'll see you in a minute. I was about to start talking before I turned the mics on, and then I realized, wait a minute. What's going on, Mary Cruz? What's going on, Brian, in the chat? Thank you, everybody, for hanging out on episode 85 of Shut Up, Let's Talk. That was Ocean Overdrive by DreamShore in the house tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out, my friend.
Thank you.
How's it going tonight, my man?
Good, good.
Is this, I know it's not your first interview or podcast at all, because I've actually checked out a couple of your interviews before. Very, very cool stuff.
Thanks, man.
What I like about you is I remember you actually reached out to me a while ago, and I'm happy you did, because, you know, sometimes like there are people that I want to interview, but I don't know they exist.
Right.
You know,
that's just the beauty about social media is that almost anybody can find anybody.
Yeah, man. So, you know, like I said, thank you for reaching out to me, man, because it was good. It was good, and I genuinely dig your music because I love 80s type of sounds. And what is an 80s type of sound, man? 80s type of sound. How would you describe an 80s type of sound? Let's get into that. What is the 80s sound to you?
A lot of synthesizers are involved, and drums that have a lot of reverb, specifically the snare, vocals, same thing. I mean, the 80s could be a variety of things. I mean, if you listen to music like from Phil Collins,
yes,
perhaps who else? Duran Duran, Five Young Cannibals. I mean, these are a lot of other like pop, pop-related synth pop bands and rock as well, rock alike.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 80s had some great guitar work.
Yeah, AC/DC.
AC/DC, yeah, definitely, man.
Megadeth.
They were Megadeth. That's shout out to Dave Mustaine, best of luck through your journey through throat cancer, my friend.
That's right. Hope he improves.
Yeah, that's some rough shit.
Yeah.
But it's all good. You know what? I like the way that he delivered his message. He's like, you know what? We're just going to take care of it. Doctor said it's got a 90% success rate. We're just going to kick its ass. I was like, you know what? That's you would say it that way.
Yeah.
Anyway, but no, man. 80s type of sound, man. What I love about it the most is that there was a good focus on instrumental skill and great catchy music at the same time. And I don't think I could ask for much more from anything.
Right.
Because that's what I want. I want good technical skill because to me, you know, I don't like to, don't get me wrong, I have appreciation for stuff like Nirvana or REM. You know, REM is just simple strum chords.
Yeah, I'm all right. But
You know?
I mean, I can't listen. I mean, I'm very, I guess you could say everybody has their preference, obviously.
Yes.
But with them, it's like I respect what they play. All in all,
Exactly,
you know what I mean?
exactly. But what gets me a lot about your music is the fact that it's a futuristic sound. And I like that because when you think about, I'm trying to figure out how to say this the right way. We have an idea of what the future is like in our heads, right?
Right.
So we think of like what chrome things, and we think of
Blade Runner, like
Yeah, Blade
as far
Runner.
as movies are concerned, the way people would dress up, the music.
Tron.
Yeah.
You know,
Tron
things
as
like
well.
that. We have an idea of the future, but in the 80s, people had an idea of the future. And, you know, it's stuff that we probably laugh at today.
Yeah.
But at the time, you know, like lasers and, you know, certain types of video games and, you know, certain cars. Like if you look at certain cars, like, you know, the Lamborghinis of the 80s and stuff, you know, you look at those shapes and you're like, wow.
Yeah, by far, my favorite vehicle would have to be a exotic sports car related would be a Ferrari Testarossa. I mean, that there stands out the most. I mean, I love it. I mean, you look at it, it's just like, I mean, who was it? Kavinsky, who was a French artist who had this heavy influence on me when it came to electronic music, but this genre that came out to be called synthwave.
Yes.
Synth pop, but more, I guess you could say, a little bit more aggressive.
Yes.
Yeah.
So synthwave, there's right now, as a big genre, there's synthwave. That's like kind of made like I don't want to say it's made a comeback, but it's made like a name for itself.
It's technically a made up name, but it's grown to a point where a lot of people know about it more now, a lot more now compared to 10 years ago. I mean, look at Stranger Things came out, yesterday?
Oh yeah, with that theme song,
yeah. And a lot of other movies too.
So what is synthwave specifically? Is it just like another word for 80s style?
If you look, well, I'll give you a summary of it, but if you look up this website by this these guys called Iron Skullet, well, it's one dude who talks a lot about this. Iron Skullet, shout out to Iron Skullet Preston, who basically has a blog revolving around synthwave, pop wave. These are other names revolving around the same genre. The difference is that a lot of people have there's softer sounds and more aggressive sound like dark synth, which relates heavily to the metal scene, and then you got the pop wave, which is more to the synth pop scene. But to answer your question, synthwave, it's just really, just music that revolves around the 80s and 90s of instruments, sounds, music, vocals that relate to that time frame. It's a lot of that, really. It's just the only way you can explain it.
I feel what you're saying because at some point, a lot of bands were trying to sound like. A lot of bands are trying to sound like Led Zeppelin or things like that, right? So they were trying to sound like 60s and 70s style bands.
Yeah.
So, in this way, it's just like an emulation of a different genre,
exactly,
of a different time period, decade. So I think it's cool, and it's funny because the imagery behind it is amazing, and it's funny because I feel like the internet and synthwave are hand in hand, because the internet, there's a section of the internet that is in love with synthwave. And the imagery that goes on, like you see, like those, like the old Renaissance statues, with with all sorts of purples and pinks, everywhere. Neon lights, neon
palm
font.
trees. I mean, believe it or not, I mean a lot of
palm trees.
Yeah, a lot of the artists during this time frame, and let's say I discovered this during 2014, but this has been happening, if I'm not mistaken, since 2008, but. A lot of it was inspired by people from different countries from around the world that were really influenced by the Miami location. I mean, Miami Vice is one of those TV shows that really got people into not just hearing the sound, soundtracks of that show, but also the style, the aesthetics behind it. which gave, I believe, an influence to a lot of music producers nowadays.
You know, you're completely right about that because, yeah, if you look at a lot of the imagery behind all that, yeah, you do see palm trees, you do see, you know, Ferraris and things of that time that were being shown on Miami Vice or capturing that sound. And I guess, you know what, Miami and Florida, or not Florida, but Miami specifically.
Yeah.
Very associated with the future. Why? Because it's associated with money.
It is.
And a lot of people feel like the money can buy you the future. Wow. Hidden topic.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. But you know, a lot of people do feel that way. So when you think about the most futuristic things, you also think about the fact that they're probably very expensive.
Of course.
Right? You know?
Definitely.
So I think that's kind of why the whole hand in hand thing happens, you know? So interesting, you know, that I never realized that I guess we are kind of like at a birth center of like futuristic thoughts.
Yeah, definitely.
And, you know, innovation in like style. It's a style thing, you know, because if you look at Miami Vice, like that was very, with the suits and the shirts, you know, the pastel colors and all sorts of different things that they were doing. They were hip back then and they're hip now. Like they don't go out of style.
Yeah, history. I mean, it
repeats itself.
Yeah,
right?
it repeats itself.
You know, and well, history does repeat itself. So in the world of analog versus synth, right? For example, right, you have, and what does that mean to the person that doesn't make music? Back in the day, they used to make actual keyboards and actual instruments, right? And you would have to use those, and now we can find them on the computer. For example, back then you'd play through an amplifier. Now you could download the amplifier. You just plug your guitar into a thing.
Or hardware, yeah, hardware synthesizers especially. I mean, nowadays you would have to go to a professional studio in order to even make songs during that time frame. Now everybody has that opportunity to make whatever they want.
Yeah, you can just download a Moog.
Exactly. I mean, of course, you know, not everybody's meant to be a producer, but what I'm trying, you know, because there's always going to be somebody that makes good music and people that make okay music for the very few, you could say. But, you know, it's possible for anybody.
It is. The tools are there.
Exactly.
Now, for you, you know, for you as a guy who synths are kind of your game, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's what you do, because that's the world you live in. You know, in the synth world, you have, you know, your options are you can either make your own synth these days, or you can download an older version of a synth, or you can buy the real thing. Where do you go? What do you do? I know you use plugins, but, you know, like people have told you that there's differences, but you don't see them, right?
It doesn't. In my opinion,
or it doesn't make a difference.
It doesn't matter to me. I mean, there's a slight difference. Yes, in frequencies. Let's say the warm sound from a hardware synthesizer compared to the plugin itself. But like I've said this to plenty of people who have the need to buy hardware synths. I would say if you have the money to do it, go ahead and buy it. By all means, do it. I'm not stopping you. But what I am saying is that it's not required. It's not necessary. Everybody can just buy off a plugin that costs probably 80% less compared to buying the hardware synth itself, you know, and
I think it all depends on who you're doing it for, right?
Of course.
Because if you're doing it for yourself, you'd probably be the type of person that's like, well, you know what, if it's not analog, it ain't the real thing. Yeah. You know, but if you're doing it for the fans, and what I mean by that is like if you're doing it just for people that want to listen to music right away, and you have that idea and you have a thing available right in front of you that could get you that sound, I think you're willing to give it to the people, right?
99% of the time, that's what all they care about.
Yeah, well, I mean, don't get me wrong, guys. Like, I have an appreciation for the vintage heads because they keep a certain dream alive.
Oh yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
they keep.
It's just. Well, you go ahead. Yeah.
No. I was just gonna say that at the end of the day, like that stuff is also beyond being hard to find. It's also really expensive, and I'm sorry, but like not everybody's willing to be able to drop $4,000.
If you got a garage, plenty of space, by all means do it. If you don't waste your time. Don't waste your money.
Yeah, I mean it's pricey, man. And I think it is all about creating a sound. And to me, you know, have you always been a musician throughout your life? Have you ever tried different styles of art? Like, have you ever tried different venues, like not venues, but different avenues? I mean,
graphic designing and things.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Have you ever done like visual art, or you tried photography, or you tried any other thing besides music at all? Because, you know, have you?
Well, I've had moments where I've had the interest of you know, doing art, graphic designing, but it really looked like it just wasn't for me, let's just say. But acting has come a little bit. It's a bit intriguing for me. I like it, you know, as far as like getting involved into a video or camera and just, you know, doing something randomly. But
that's awesome. That's not for everybody.
No. But currently, well, during that time frame, let's say from 20, because really I got into this whole creative juice mode, let's say, during 2014, and my interest has always been music. And of course, during this time frame now, as I continue doing what I do, I still have the need to do other things such as videography and acting. I actually am currently working on a few scripts for like a music video and for a short film as well. I've after composing for a couple of movies, it gave me this inspiration to say to myself, all right, let's see if I can come up with a short film for myself. For myself, and get other people involved as the time comes.
Important. You named yourself first before other people. Mm-hmm. That's a missing link for anybody that doesn't know, because you got to kick your own ass before you try to kick other people's asses.
Exactly.
It's a thing. Trust me. So, scripts. That's pretty awesome, man. What led you there? That's cool.
Really, I just wanted to create something. I just wanted to make something.
I noticed you being a picture painter, and what I mean by that is whether it's through music or through, you're somebody that understands a certain emotion and tries to project it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what am I trying to say? Basically, let's say you're learning how to draw, right? Mm-hmm. Somebody says, draw a happy thing. Something as simple as that, right? You're like, oh shit, what do I do? Draw a happy thing. Maybe you'll draw trees. Maybe you'll draw a sun. Maybe you'll draw, a person with a smiley face. Maybe you'll draw things that you think are happy, right?
Yeah.
Now with music, you got to do the same thing. Imagine somebody says make a happy song. You're like, all right, how do I do that? So you got to think of ways to paint happy pictures. And in music, there's majors and minors and all sorts of things that you can get into. And that you're able to do that. You have the tools to do that. But it's all about painting certain pictures. You still have to know how to paint it. Mm-hmm. You can't paint green if you don't know what green looks like.
Exactly.
So you're a picture painter. So when I say, what I mean by that is that, so when you say you're writing scripts, you're making songs like the songs that you are making, which I find you care a lot about melody. You care a lot about chord progression.
I do.
You care a lot about pacing in a song.
I like to focus more on the emotion over the genre itself.
There you have it. And those are all missing links, I think. Anyway, I know I kind of took a left turn on that one, but in a way, it was just the fact that I know you're doing, like I said, you're doing scripts and stuff. So what are some of the? Do you want to? Do you have any? No, you shouldn't put the ideas out there. That's kind of you can't do that, can you?
Not yet.
Yeah, you can't. What inspires you to do scripts? What are some good TV that you've seen? Because you were recommending me. Oh, you were gonna recommend me some TV earlier, but I'm so lost in the TV world, man, because I don't know why, but I just got lost. I started watching Friends and I couldn't stop. There's better TV out there, though.
Absolutely, but hey, Friends is okay too. Mm. A lot of my script writing currently has come from a lot of martial arts and futuristic. I mean, I'm a big fan of Back to the Future, and I actually. One of the actors, Jean-Claude Van Damme, I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but he's a big deal to me. His movies Bloodsport, Kickboxer gave me this idea.
Actually, was badass.
Resilience, one of my previous EP from last year, was heavily influenced behind that movie, those two movies.
Oh.
The composer who did those films goes by the name of Paul Herzog. He made music that really gave me an idea of what I can do, because I realized in the retrowave community, this whole synthwave community, they all have this repetitive cycle of having a bass line that sidechain to the kick, and it got a little bit boring, let's just say.
Dead mouse.
So I said to myself, all right, let me see what I can come up with going this realm, and it turned out. I felt like it turned out pretty well. I mean, the YouTube channel that goes by the name of New Retrowave, which is also a label, who actually gave that EP a chance to be placed onto their platform, and it actually got a lot of good heads, and a lot of people were nice about it. They loved it. So
awesome.
That EP was actually during that time frame when I made it, I was going through a little bit of a rough patch emotionally, and just life itself.
Human things.
Yeah, a human thing. Just normal life, and I had the opportunity to create something that differentiate from the majority, and that's what I did.
That's amazing, man. I love it. And a lot of people I know try to ask me about music and how to get into it, and what to do and what not to do and all this kind of stuff, and I'm just like, man, it's so hard to give that kind of advice, isn't it?
Of course.
You got to live, don't you?
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes when people ask for the advice, the only real advice they require is when they just live their life. I mean, you'll eventually get your answer that way, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, and most people, you know what it is? A lot of people are afraid of and no matter what instrument we're talking about, a lot of people are just afraid of the instrument. A lot of people are afraid. You know what it is, man? Imagine somebody could tell you to get on top of a mountain. Nobody's around. Mm-hmm. Scream whatever you want off of that thing. You might say some things that'll shake you up. You might never come back. Because somebody's like, scream off of the top of that thing. All your deepest frustration, scream it out, It
helps.
And you might not be able to come back from that, you know what I mean? Okay. And playing an instrument, to me, I feel like a lot of the time, you're given that opportunity every day.
You are.
You're giving that, somebody is giving you a mountain, and they're kind of like, you know what, scream whatever you want.
Yeah, not just for yourself, but what you're doing, probably a lot of other people can do, but you're giving them that chance to express themselves as well with what you create, because not only it pleases you, but it pleases a lot of other people. Yeah,
definitely, man. And you just can't be afraid to express, man. I think that's the problem. Like, I don't think you've ever taken yourself too seriously, have you?
I feel, well,
you don't know what that is, do you?
I have. But that was a while back. Nowadays, it's just like I take one day at a time. You can't take things too seriously. Otherwise, you get overwhelmed with everything.
And what it is like, but do you ever feel, so, what was I saying? On Runaway, for example, who's singing the lyrics?
Me.
Exactly. And I assumed it was you, and you sound great, by the way. But when you wrote the lyrics, or did you not? Didn't matter.
I did. A friend of mine was actually the one that, when I was writing the instrumental itself, I was heavily assisted by, I don't know if you know him, but I think he's still in the band Loneborn, Jonathan.
Absolutely. Oh, man, Jonathan.
Very creative guy.
He's a very creative guy.
I mean, his artwork itself and what he does as far as a musician is concerned, I mean, he's got a heavy background of playing music, but also writing good lyrics, and he was a big part of that. He wrote a lot of that, and the ideas of the formation, the way it should be sung. He's probably the reason why I made this song.
Well, that's amazing. And you know what?
So shout out to Jonathan Tuckler for that.
Absolutely. He's a good one. Sorry, but you know what? I've been trying to have lunch with that dude over the last week, and it hasn't worked out.
I haven't spoken to him in a while. I mean, him and I mean, everybody has their own, like, everybody's busy. Everybody's got their own life.
We got lives.
Exactly. So it's just like, I wish him all the best, and I hope he's doing well. Absolutely, man.
I'll make sure to tell him you said hello.
Absolutely.
If we didn't get to hear it from here. But he is a great songwriter. He's a great creative. He's somebody with a lot of that same type of energy. And it's funny, man, because in this world, in this funny little beautiful world that we live in, right? There's two sides. Well, there's many sides to everything. But let's keep it simple. Two sides, right? There's givers and takers, right? It's not a bad thing. Not a bad thing to be a giver, not a bad thing to be a taker, vice versa. There's people on stage, there's people in the crowd. There's people making the burgers, there's people eating the burgers.
Yeah.
Whatever you're talking about. I love the fact that, on a show like this, and I guess I'm saying this because, like I said, I enjoy what you do. I enjoy everything everybody on here does. That's why they're hanging out. That's why we're hanging out. Because I'm trying to, I get to pick your brain, and I get to learn. Now I get to listen to DreamShore music, and I get to make music inspired by DreamShore. So it's epic. I don't know, man. I don't even know what I'm trying to say, but in a way, I'm just trying to say, like, it's a good time being on both sides, because I get
on the creative and the listener side
on this show. Yeah, because I get to be on the creative side, where I get to be like, what are these beautiful concepts that I'm looking at? How can I draw from this and cherry pick and plant my own tree? And then I get to also be on the listener side and listen to the great stuff that goes on. And it's funny because you mentioned Jonathan, and Jonathan's been on the show before with Loneborn. They make great music. Tommy's a good friend. We mentioned Tommy earlier. He's a great saxophonist, whatever they're called.
Yes, he is, and I actually want to hit him up for that as well
when he's available. I'll drag his ass over there. You know, he'd happily be there. But yeah, man. Interesting though, man. So I mean, so I know we maybe got away from the topic a little bit, but analog versus digital, man. You don't feel like you need the actual instrument there to be able to make this good music, and you don't.
Not at all. I mean, people get overwhelmed with this subject because there's a lot of people, and mind you, I've looked up Facebook groups, and there's people that post about this whole competition between analog and digital.
No.
And there's just hundreds of comments. Some of them are just being funny, silly, but people are being serious, and they have this whole essay explaining about the difference between those two. I'm just like, for the love of God, don't get so caught up with it. Just, if you like one or the other. I like them both. I just prefer digital because that's my preference.
And if you're not doing Jordan Rudess levels of soloing,
exactly,
if you're not soloing on this analog synth, then you don't need the feel of the keyboard itself to actually be something important. Because keyboards are, for anybody that doesn't know, keyboards are all weighted differently. The keys will feel different depending on what they're trying to do.
Exactly.
And a lot of analog ones, like the point of analog is that this thing is built. When you press it a certain way, it sounds a certain way.
Right.
With digital, they try to copy that.
Yeah.
With
it's an emulator
with zeros and ones, yeah. And there's like we said before, there's nothing wrong with either, but that is what it is. If you're not doing crazy solos and you don't need to be doing all this crazy stuff, if you're just playing chords and you're playing chord progressions that you're going to end up side chaining anyway, just relax, will you?
Yeah,
it's fine. Yeah. Just set the attack and the decay or whatever. Just set it to what you got to set it to. Hit your sustain up. Make the chord sound louder if you got to make it. Just do what you got to do. Now, as far as learning all these things, man, did you ever have any formal training about any attack and delay or any decay? I mean, or any of that stuff, or do you just have fun with it?
A lot of it was just experimentation, trial and error, and a couple of YouTube videos here and there. Absolutely,
that's huge.
But
YouTube, thank God for YouTube.
Yeah,
right?
Without that platform, I don't know how people would be able to create what they create nowadays. But all I can say is, it allowed me to figure out and identify each and every effect plugin that I would require to create a song of such.
So what's a big one you're using right now? What's one you could recommend to everybody?
Compressors and EQ.
What? Sorry. Those are audio plugins to help with the shaping the sound. But what about actual keyboards?
I love using a lot. I mean, I have a lot of native instruments.
They're great.
I got Complete 11, but
ooh.
I enjoy using Imp Oscar too. It's vintage.
What's it called?
It's a Imp. I believe it's pronounced Imp Oscar too.
Okay, I'll check that out.
Which is a vintage synth plugin, and I've always messed around with everything from the arpeggiators to the pads and stuff, but I mix it up using plugins from Ableton itself.
Love Ableton.
Yeah. Also,
Ableton's my weapon of choice as well.
Plugins from Native Instruments as well. So combining all those elements, I'm able to create whatever I require, and sometimes more.
Cool, man. That's amazing, dude. So I mean, in the world of audio design, there's so many options. I've used Absynth. Mm-hmm. From Native Instruments, right? Absinthe. Yeah. It was a fun one. It was fun because you get to blend sounds together, and there's a lot of tweaking available.
Reactor as well. Reactor 5.
I haven't checked out Reactor. I've used Nexus like everybody in the world. That one's fine.
That one's good. That one's nice. That's all right.
I like it. It's dated now.
Yeah.
Because everybody's heard if you heard any song, it's probably Nexus. Because especially if it's on YouTube. And
I mean, yeah, a lot of people nowadays crack these softwares and plugins.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I got nothing against it. If you can't afford it, go ahead and crack it.
Test it out.
You got to think about it this way: all those plugins, all those softwares that you're using in today's time, not just somebody, multiple, if not hundreds of employees had to create that plugin itself. So consider it that way. Think of it that way. Somebody made something for you, even with music, although a lot of people just download
I'm just going to stream it on Spotify.
Or stream it. Which, Spotify, I'm not complaining about, but what I'm saying is in general, people just cracking it in general.
Yeah, I feel you.
Consider what you're doing.
It's true. Because there is growing up, I did crack a lot of programs, and even even to this day, I might have to once in a while. Lego Lord of the Rings. I wanted to play Lego Lord of the Rings recently, okay, and they don't even sell the game anymore because a contract ran out between Warner Brothers, I believe, and the Tolkien estate or something like that.
I never knew that.
Yeah, so you can't buy Lego's Lord of the Rings anymore. It's just not available anywhere.
Wow.
So if you want to get it, you either have to buy a CD, which good luck, or Amazon.
Well, that's a good reason to crack it then.
Yeah, or you pirate it. So yeah, things like that. And even video games, older video games. My problem with that is that a lot of the time, the games are either hard to find, or Nintendo wants to charge you $30 a piece for the games now.
Oh yeah.
Which is like, well, we're not going to pay $30 for a game you came out with 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, forget
anyway, so emulation, piracy, do I support it? Not necessarily, because I would love all those families to get fed. But at the same time, it's like, man, you got to adapt with the times, too.
Of course.
A lot of the time, I wish a lot of programs these days offered subscription services.
That as well.
If I could pay $15 a month for certain programs and synths or whatever it is, I'd happily I would happily do that. I'd set a budget for myself, and I would say, you know what, that budget is for that's for the production. You pay it off like a car.
They always have sales too. I mean, you just gotta wait for the right time. I mean, I bought
right?
Ableton when it was at its lowest, you could say. I mean, I found discounts, let's just say, and I bought Ableton that way.
That's awesome, man. Which Ableton are you? 10?
Ableton Live 10, yeah.
Wow, man. Ableton is amazing, man. For anybody that's using music programs, Pro Tools is great, Fruity Loops is great. They're all great. Reason is great.
Yes, after Audacity, Fruity Loops was probably the next.
Love it. That sequencer is so good.
It is. And you know what? A lot of people do make music off of that, and I got to tell you, it's a very flexible, simple software to use. And if people are trying to grow further, I would say Ableton, in my opinion.
I agree.
I know Logic is cool, Pro Tools is nice, but in my opinion, with Ableton, it allows you to also not only record music, but for other purposes as well. I mean, I've seen people use it for DJing purposes, also for composing music, and even
podcasting. I've used it for.
Yeah, for live as well, for live purposes. There's people out there, electronic bands, that use Ableton for backing tracks. So it's
perfect.
It's very flexible for many different reasons, for many different things.
I agree. And what I like about Ableton is the workflow. And what I loved about Fruity Loops, I don't use it too much anymore, but what I really love about it is that for some reason I feel like Fruity Loops knows, the developers, I feel like they know that most of the people using their program have a keyboard and a mouse.
Yeah.
They don't have a MIDI keyboard yet. And they allow you to get so much done with just a keyboard and a mouse that it allows people to jump right in.
Yeah.
And then later on, once they're able to afford a $100 MIDI keyboard, they can jump right in and start that next level. But they allow it to be really easy to get in and jump. I started on Fruity Loops 7 back in the day, and like I said, just from the get-go, I was able to just program a beat in the sequencer, hit the thing, find the tempo. Everything's right there.
It's convenient and simple.
Absolutely, man. So anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the next song of the evening. I would like to play Runaway, the CJ Burnett remix, if you don't mind, because I do like that. They're all great, but that is a great one. In the meantime, I'm also going to urinate because lots of beer has happened. Oh, come on. My girlfriend's looking at me like, why are you going to make it sound like it? Come on. Urinate, guys. It's better than saying I got to... Anyway. I'm going to take a minute to urinate.
We'll be taking a break this time.
We'll be taking a break.
Urinating.
The urination proclamation. Enjoy, folks. BRB. bad way, but that makes more sense. Sounds like. Go ahead, my man. Yes, folks, let me go ahead and take that off the screen really quick. And that was a DreamShore with Runaway, the CJ Burnett remix. And I like it quite a bit. That's been a tune that's been in my headphones for a few days.
Thank you. And actually, speaking of...
And also Ocean Overdrive.
Yeah, thank you. And also, regarding CJ Burnett, he actually came... I discovered him when I visited New York, Manhattan, when I was heading to a film festival for a movie that I co-scored for. He came through and he actually discovered me just right off the bat when I was leaving the movie, and he just told me he liked what I did, he liked the movie, he liked the music, and during that time frame we just started talking ever since then. And he means well. I mean, the guy stands out a lot in many different ways, but the majority would be his music. That's by far. I mean, so when you have a chance, I would highly recommend anybody to take a look at CJ Burnett's music. Not to mention, he does have, I believe, an upcoming EP he'll be releasing sometime in the near future of this year.
Oh, sweet, man. So shout out to CJ Burnett with that. Speaking of EPs and albums, man, what do you got going on at the moment? Are you working on a singles only type of thing right now? Or
I have a couple more that I'm working on, but for this year, I've decided, after all this time frame that I've been making music as DreamShore, I think it's time that I have a debut album.
Yeah, definitely.
Because the majority of the time I've had a lot of singles and EPs, and I said to myself, you know what, I think, because here's the thing, during 2015 to now, a lot has changed as far as my knowledge in producing, and also what I'm looking for and my direction of things. So with this debut album, a lot will be bringing back the old, but in a much more enhanced way, and just representing a new image.
Definitely, man. That's awesome, man. So what do you have envisioned for this album? You know, do you have anything at the moment or not yet? Or you're just gonna wait to see what comes of it?
I want to heavily represent Miami itself.
Ah.
So think of Miami Vice meets Blade Runner.
I'm excited.
But in a tropical way.
Yeah. I'm excited, man, because you know what? You're the kind of person I feel like that's good at, obviously you reached out to me, and you're good at putting yourself out there, you know, which I don't know, sounds like it's a new phrase I know we're using these days, you know, putting yourself out there. But yeah, you're good at communicating with people, which I feel like a lot of people, me included, you know, get stuck in, you know. With the podcast, the podcast actually is here to help me do that. You know, me typically, I'm a fairly social person, but I get caught spending a lot of alone time. You know, because you know, I got all the guitars. I got to make sure they're worth they're worth
exactly
littering the room with. But you know, yeah, I spend a lot of time doing stuff, so I don't get the chance to meet people as much as I'd like to. But then, and you can't grow without that. You know.
But thankfully, with social media, it makes it a whole lot easier.
It really, really does, folks.
Like I get it. There's a lot of downsides and upsides to social media. I get that, but that's with almost anything. And can we at least both agree that with social media, especially Instagram itself, even Facebook, has allowed everyone and anybody to communicate with anyone that they so desire to speak to.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to creatives. Yeah. Because here's the thing. I believe that, you know, you living in this state and finding somebody that lives halfway around the world, let's say in China or whichever country, United Kingdom, can make an impact over time.
Definitely.
Because really, it's all about having the not just the motivation to talk to people, but also the, you know, think of it is, it's not just helping yourself, but it's helping everybody else. Because I feel like you make the impact when you surround yourself with the type of people that you can say they're here more than just for the business concept. There is a thing called friendship and a long-term goal that everybody seeks, which is in most cases success and friendship as well. Because you know what, man, I've met many different people, and you know, I've taken the time to go out, travel from California to Rhode Island to plenty of other states, even Brazil,
nice,
for a film festival. But realizing that there's a lot to life when you meet different types of peoples and their types of situations. It makes you, I guess you could say, more grateful.
Yeah. And
also understanding that you may be having it rough, but there's always somebody that has it.
Yeah. Probably right next door, right?
And,
Probably in the next wall.
Yeah.
You never know.
Yeah, and you know, it's great because you get to meet other people that are in the creative concept mindset as well. So it's cool because it's just social media. Without it, you wouldn't be able to do that.
No. It opens us up a lot, man.
It does.
A lot of people complain about it because I know there's so many negatives, and I know that the market can get saturated.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people feel like, how am I going to make it above everybody else? Well, you got to be original. And being original today is much more difficult than it was before because now people have an idea of whatever original is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Even for me with this show, like, don't get me wrong, you know, like I know I talk, you know, we have conversations about other people's, you know, careers and moves and things like that. But, you know, this show is also on its own journey. And in a funny way, it's like, yeah, even with this show, you know, I try to figure out, like, what am I going to do that's not going to bore the people? You know, like, what's fun for people? What do the people want to see? And in a way, man, I don't know. It's sometimes for creative people, I know it's hard trying to find a balance between what you want and what people want. And a lot of people may call it selling out, or people have different ideas of what different things are. But what is the dream for, you know, what is the ideal situation for DreamShore? Like, where do you want to be to where you can say that you're successful? You know, is it like a lot of album sales? Is it good live shows? Is it both?
I've already reached that.
Oh, right.
Because I mean, like, but I want, you know, like, once you reach a certain goal, there's another goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know,
if you got the right mindset.
Exactly. So, you know, being able to release an EP, that's a goal.
Yeah.
Then that was my goal. And now it's just grown to doing other things. And, you know, movies came in and I had the opportunity to do so. And I'm trying to do more of it. But for this year, you could say, and the following year of 2020, definitely an album, but also networking a lot more and having a lot of, hopefully, more tours.
Yeah, man.
Because here's the thing, I've had this I've been in the same zone where I'm always writing music and stuff, and I love it. Don't get me wrong. Yes, of course, there's always that time where you just have the desire to go out and beyond, further beyond, and explore more. There's a lot of great bands out there that do have a similar sound to myself, and I would love to reach out to them as well to give myself the opportunity to go further and beyond with what I want.
Absolutely.
And speaking of going further and beyond. There's a lot of creatives out there. When I was mentioning different people from different sides of the world, actually, speaking of music, synthwave itself, there is a music festival called Retro Future Fest that's going down in London, United Kingdom.
Whoa!
Which I'll be heading to by the end of July. I'll be staying there for a couple of weeks, hanging out with some people that I also collaborate with when it comes to. The whole music scene itself and collaborate, just networking with other people.
Yeah,
and,
just making friends, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if you ever heard of this podcast called Zero Link.
I'll check it out.
They're based off of London as well, and
cool
this guy
name.
has a legit studio where he specializes in recording music. And him and we've been talking ever since. I gave him my ideas and concepts of what I had in mind and what we can do together. Not only that, I've worked on a collective. Been working on a collective currently to help promote other people's type of music that relates towards mine, or further beyond that.
Cool.
That resembles around the electronic music scene, and a lot. At the same time, it's fun because there's a lot of people out there that have creative minds, but they have a difficulty of trying to figure out of getting themselves out there. That's the
marketing, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I don't even have the answers myself. It's more about I believe it's just consistency. And sometimes you just need to create the right thing that would suit the entire world. Because sometimes all it takes is that one person who may so possibly have the following that you require, who will then share it to everyone else, and the cycle goes on. It attracts more listeners.
Well, I think you're smart in the fact that you actually reach out, man. I know I said it a few minutes ago, but it's like that's a big missing link, man. A lot of people don't do that. A lot of people are like, don't get me wrong, I know people, and I've seen people do things like they just post up they'll have a project they're working on, and they'll expect the people to just roll in.
It's not like that anymore, especially because the algorithms have changed.
Yeah,
but at the same time,
Instagram's not playing around. The new algorithm, ouch. I got hurt.
It hurt me too. I mean, especially when I was using IG Story, because I used to add like 3 hashtags and put 2 hashtags behind the main hashtag, let's say.
Yeah.
And it allowed you. The cool thing was that there was actually people viewing these hashtags, and you get hundreds, if not thousands, of viewers.
So cool.
But apparently, just a couple months ago, all that changed. I'm just like, wow.
Hit hard. I didn't expect it.
You got to make sure when you're using a hashtag that it resembles what you're posting.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, man. I try to concentrate it as much as I can these days. Rough, man, rough.
Yes,
Instagram's not playing around, dude. And I know we were talking about it a little bit earlier, but there's so much censorship going on these days. And I understand it's a very heavy political climate out there, folks. We get it. And I'm sure there are people that try to tune into this show and try to find politics. And you won't find it, folks. You won't find it.
Yeah, not here.
Only when I'm making fun of people that are stupid about it, on both sides. Because there are definitely both sides of the situation.
No side is perfect.
Exactly. And to me, I don't bother with politics, guys. I call politics the magic show. Like I was telling DreamShore before the episode, that to me it's a magic show. You go in there, grab your seat, get your Coke, get your popcorn, do what you got to do. Enjoy it as much as possible. Because if you're gonna do anything, I don't care if you're tying your shoes. Be the best at what you can be. Do
Absolutely.
that. Enjoy the show, but don't ever sit and tell me that thing is real. Don't be like, hey, did you see? I'll be like, listen, man, that's cool and everything, but
it's just, I don't say that particular subject, it can create.
It's a funky one.
Conflict.
It's a funky one, and don't get me wrong, I'm not out here like the government did 9/11. I'm not. We're not trying to go into that. I'm just trying to say that it's just politics are funky, man. You know why? Because there's lots of money involved, and when there's money involved in stuff, it's hard to believe anything.
Yeah.
Anything, because people like cash. So people do weird stuff for cash, and I don't think politicians or anybody above actors or anybody else doing anything out of the ordinary. People are like, Tupac faked his death, and it's like, why would he do that? Well, if he ever did, it would be for money.
Yeah.
What other reason? Or also maybe to get well. Anyway, we're not going to get into that. How do we get into Tupac dying? Hey, man. What's the future for DreamShore, my friend? What do we have to look up to? Do you tour? Do you do live shows? Or is that something you're working on at any point?
It's just only now I've dedicated a lot more time to get involved. It's just finding the right people.
How does a live show work with like your music? Like, for example, you know what I mean? Because I know it's you mostly behind everything.
I got a buddy of mine that's recently involved with what I do. Especially he's going to be like a lead guitarist. Because
sweet.
Regarding music in general, I have, even to this point, I've been a lot more picky about who I get myself involved with.
Good
especially because I've come from a background of bands, and relying on other people. Let's just say it's best to rely on yourself.
I can see why you make music alone. Yeah.
It's better. I mean, I'll be honest with you. Every single project that I've done during the past to now, I probably had a lot more success doing with what I have currently compared to everything else I've ever done in my life.
Feel you.
With music. It's satisfying. Because you realize that it really does just takes one person to do what they do. And people will
especially if you
themselves.
have it in your mind.
Yeah. And the thing is knowing your vision, understanding what you have, what you got going on for yourself, what you seek into doing later on in the future. And to answer your question, I am going to be doing a lot more events. It's just I need to take a lot more time into networking, contacting people left and right from IG, Facebook, email. It's just really just being able to communicate. Communication I believe is a crucial thing, because you know what? People are people. I think people hesitate. People have the fear of getting a negative outcome, or like saying, no, we don't need you. Hey, if it happens, it happens. The point is trying to get yourself out there, right? So, because there's always somebody else doing the same exact thing you're doing. So what can you do to do better? Simple.
Totally.
Grow some balls and do what you have to do.
It's true, though. It's true.
Yeah.
It's tough, man. I mean, like I said, I know a lot of people that write lyrics but scrap everything because they feel silly, or they, play guitar and they feel like they're not fast enough, so they just don't bother writing the song.
Right. They're overwhelmed by the outcome of things.
Yeah, and they're overwhelmed by their own judgment. They're overwhelmed by the people that they look up to.
Yeah.
And it's understandable, man. Like, don't get me wrong. My favorite guitar player, Joe Satriani, right? I listen to him, right? And then I listen to his music, and I'm like, I'm not there. You know, I can't make that one note sound as good as he does.
Yeah, but so what? You're you.
And we got our own voice, you know, and that's the another missing link there, is that you got to find your own voice.
The problem is that people are trying to imitate other people.
Yeah.
And that's when you lose focus on what you really define yourself as.
Yeah, right. Because you could learn from others, but you got your own voice.
Yeah,
Like you have
exactly.
your own lessons to teach, right?
Your own style, your own way of doing things. It doesn't require you to become the next duplicate of another person.
Absolutely, man. So, I mean, in a way, you know, it's like I said, I look at what Joe Satriani does, and I try to, you know, you try to emulate it, but you try to have your own voice. I think that's the most important thing. A lot of people are afraid of their own voice.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, what's funny, going back a little bit, that's what I was saying, is that people are afraid to be on that mountaintop screaming, because they feel like, oh, what if somebody hears me? You know, what if somebody hears me say that I'm angry about this stupid thing?
Then then that means you don't really have the interest of going to the top.
You're in it for something else, right?
Yeah, you're in it for something else.
Whatever that is, right?
And if fear is causing you to have those thoughts, then there's your answer.
I just can't imagine how it's almost like it burns me up in a way, because it's like, you know, as somebody who likes to make things, imagine Michelangelo being like, well, I mean, I can't make this. What if it makes me look silly? You know,
Right.
It's just like, no, you gotta be you. Like, that's the coolest thing about this. That's all we have.
Yeah.
I feel like as human beings, all we have is individuality.
That's the main.
That's all we got.
That's all we really got. Yeah.
And if you don't have that, what else do you have to offer? Nothing. You're just a copy of somebody else that we could be talking to. You know?
Yeah, and life goes on.
And life goes on, and it's weird, man. Life is a goofy balance between, you know, everybody being worth 100% no matter who you are, because I feel like that is true.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we end up being in this funny game where we start comparing, and we're like, well, I can't be around you because you're bringing me down. And what is bringing me down? But bringing me down is true too. Life is a funny gamble, and I feel like that's what we make music about, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's how we end up with songs like Runaway, and we end up with songs like, you know, whatever, you know, like any other song, any other song.
Sometimes you realize over time that the people that you were around with previously, let's say,
Yeah.
and if you're no longer with them now, it's just, look, like I said before, everybody has their own life going on. But what I'm trying to say is that everybody has their own goals, so you can't rely on anybody else but yourself. I mean, the way I see it, you are your own priority.
Yeah. And that goes for life or music.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you're talking about.
Both.
Yeah. And musically, I've been a guitar player in a band. I didn't like it. You know, because after a while I was like, man, I gotta, and this is no disrespect to any previous band members I've ever had.
Not at all.
It's not, it's just the fact that, like, you know, even a day, you know, time is time. A minute's a minute.
Because you know what? You know, you if you are with bands that do dedicate their time and they all work together, you are blessed.
Yeah.
You're fortunate, because there's not a lot of people like that.
No. You get buddies to jam with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what we seek, you know, as people, is just like other people to share those vibrations with, you know, and music is just that.
Yeah.
Just literally vibrations that just are in pitch, you know?
Yep.
Through a speaker. So don't ever, you know, like I said, I know it's fun to get caught up in the emotions of music, but let's never forget that they are just sound waves that just bounce off, and we get to manipulate them in thirds and fifths and, you know, flat sevenths and all sorts of funny stuff. You know, we get to manipulate them in ways that make you feel a certain way. And we were talking about the two sides of the stage and the crowd, you know, and they're it's a give and take, folks, and don't ever fight that system. If you're a listener, be the best at listening. Learn all the bands you can learn, recommend all the cool bands you can recommend. If you're a person that makes music, you know, express yourself, give people your voice, man.
Don't hesitate.
Don't hesitate, man. Is that something do you have to fight against yourself and tell yourself to just push forward sometimes? I feel like I have to do that.
Of course.
Don't we all, right? Yeah,
but we all have to. More than others, but we just have to.
I have habits, man. Like, sometimes I find habits, like somebody will message me and I'll be like, I'll message him in a minute. And I'll be like, no, I won't. It'll be that minute, it'll turn into 30 minutes.
Sometimes you think to yourself, is this worth replying back to, or to whom you're contacting? It's just like, you know, those are also additional thoughts that come into your mind.
It's life, right?
Yeah.
What's the song you're working on right now that you're excited about? What's something that's birthing right now?
Birthing?
Like, yeah, you know, something that's in the process.
Well, it's not just one song, but there are multiple songs. It's just What's
one you're really excited about? What's the image of that song?
Well,
know? I love that kind of stuff.
I got an old buddy of mine. He's not an old buddy, but he's one of my favorite artists who goes by the name of Robots with Ray Guns.
Robots with Ray Guns.
Yeah, he's based off of Phoenix,
yeah.
Arizona, bro. I actually went there several months ago last year.
Phoenix?
Yeah, Phoenix.
Gotta be hot.
You think this is hot? I mean, I'd rather deal with the humidity that we have here compared to there.
And the dry heat, right?
Dry.
Dude,
Heat.
I hear
is
guitars.
torture. Mentally, I'm just like, I tell him, dude, how do you live in this freaking place? Because he's like, oh, you get used to it. I'm like, no, I'm not used to this. I'm from Miami, bro. All right, I'm from the sunny, from the sun, it's a sunshine state.
Somebody give me an empanada right now.
Or colada.
Yes, please. Yes.
But no, but him and I, we've been talking a lot about collaborations and some suggestions that I've have in mind. But him and I were working on a couple of tracks that I'm really motivated to get this whole album on the ball, because there are a lot of other producers, including CJ Burnett and some others that I have in mind, who will be probably giving me the opportunity to create the biggest impact with this debut album that I have going on.
Sweet, man. You ever thought about contacting any indie game developers? Maybe getting your music in some video games?
I have, but you know what?
It's tough, right?
I thought it through,
Not
and
tough,
I just no. It's just there's a lot of other people doing it. But not only that, it's just, you know what? I said to myself, let me work on this. I'll focus more on film, composing for music later on in the future.
Yeah.
Video games are great. Don't get me wrong. I just prefer doing films, like movies, legitimate movies.
I'm with you.
And not only that, it's just when it comes to music in general, with what I do, I prefer just focusing more on my particular project, and because with the film production world and the music world and the acting world, they're very, very different in its own way. And I would say that you need to know somebody who's willing to cooperate with you. And I was fortunate, I didn't even go. If you look me up, I'm on IMDb. But here's the thing. Regarding my history of how I even got the opportunity to get involved in film scoring was by accident, because a couple of songs that I released recently, I've had them since 2011, but
wow.
But I took them off during 2014. I brought them back during last year, and this guy who's an old friend of mine, who's been around with me since 2014, has allowed me to compose music for a couple of his films, which gave me that extra push to go further into scoring for film. And it was motivating, because it's like the song, I didn't really care or much about it, yet somebody else who was a director had the interest of it.
That's amazing.
It all started with an email, and he discovered me through SoundCloud. SoundCloud's not the same now, but what I'm saying is during that time frame, there's a lot of, I guess you could say, a lot of ordinary talent that was pretty simple to discover. And I guess you could say I was fortunate enough to be one of them.
Well, there's a funny thing about opportunity that I heard a long time ago. It changed my life. Somebody said opportunity is all about, people always say have the right skill at the right, be at the right place at the right time. Mm-hmm. Opportunity is all about having the right skill at the right time, and well, exactly, just having the right skill at the right time.
Yes.
Because you got to build your skills up, but you also have to be there for that opportunity. Like, for example, let's say that you're struggling and you're on Craigslist looking for jobs. A certain post in the music section could be from Activision, who make Call of Duty. You never know.
You never know. It's out there.
It's out there, and it could be like, musician needed for a AAA title game. You don't even know. It doesn't even say Call of Duty.
Right.
You apply for it, guess what? You might be able to get that opportunity, but but they have to hear your music and think this is what we're looking for. You got to have the right skill required at the right time.
Yeah.
It's not just about being at the right place. You got to have the skills too, and a lot of people don't want to. A lot of people, I hate it, man. Don't get me wrong. I love opportunity, I love participation, but I'm really not a big fan of the participation trophies. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's a tough one too, I know. But it's like, not everybody deserves to be not everybody deserves to be number one, whatever number one is. And if you're number one in your own mind or in somebody else's mind, that's just as good as any other number one. Okay?
Yeah.
But don't get me wrong, when I'm trying to say that you know, let's say, I don't know, let's say your music is not in time and your guitar is out of tune, for example, and you used a bad sounding microphone, for example, you know, or you put the microphone far away from the amplifier and you're sending this song to Activision to be like, hey, I'd love this in the new Call of Duty. Guess what? The music's not ready yet.
You know, yeah, there's a mixed feelings behind that. I mean, you never know, because it's interesting how things are. Exactly. Because you don't expect a certain song to be highly interested into somebody that revolves around video production, or let me say film production in this case.
Right.
But
you never know.
You never know. Yeah. You just shouldn't hesitate. And that's when that happened to me, that's when I learned not to hesitate and not back down, regardless of the outcome of things, especially just releasing music in general.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
I agree with you, and don't get me wrong, guys. I sometimes I say stuff to get people thinking, but I don't want to discourage anybody. Like, don't get me wrong. For example, there's a video game sound designer out there, and I don't know his name at the moment. I forgot the game at the moment, but I know for a fact he made the gunshot sounds for a video game from his dog farting into a microphone.
Really?
His dog farted into a microphone. He captured the sound of his dog farting into a microphone, and he manipulated that sound into gunshots into the video game. Huh. So what I'm trying to say to you guys is that, don't get me wrong, be as weird as possible. It could work.
Yeah.
But that is a specific skill. He was still able to make those dog farts sound like gunshots. And to the average person, they would say that sounds like a gunshot. So that is a specific skill required. So I know I may be at the most extreme end of examples there, but it exists.
It's effective.
It exists. DreamShore, my friend. Episode 85 of Shut Up, Let's Talk, my friend. How do you like it so far?
Loving it.
Thank you, man. Thank you for being on, man. It's been one of the most fun episodes because we had a good time to talk about the feelings of music. To me, it's one of the most important parts about it, man.
Thank you for having me. I love what you do.
Thank you for being on, man. I love what you do, brother. Episode 85 of Shut Up, Let's Talk, my friends. DreamShore, if they want to follow you on the social medias, where can they follow you at?
You can take a look at Instagram.com/IamDreamShore, or perhaps Twitter.com/IamDreamShore as well. And if you are a Bandcamp fanatic, you can also look me up there as well, dreamshore.bandcamp.com. And if perhaps you have the interest of having a conversation, feel free to message me whichever platform you so desire, because I'm in every single one of them.
Yes. So search up DreamShore, folks. Go ahead and check that out. In the meantime, folks, if you guys want to follow me, it's at Alizar Chand. If you guys want to follow the show, it's at Shut Up, Let's Talk, all over the interweb, the webosphere, the globosphere, whatever you guys want to call it. Follow me on the WWWs. In the meantime, folks, love, peace, chicken grease. Look both ways before you cross the street. We will catch you on the flip side. Check out DreamShore's music, folks. Do it. Later.